Well, as Chris said, I'm David Sirrine. I work for Red Hat, recently minted. I've been working there for about a month now as a TAM, Technical Account Manager. There's my contact information if anybody can see it. If you're interested, you can follow me on Twitter, you can send me emails, I don't care. I'm here to talk a little bit about IPTables. This is kind of a short notice topic for me. I've had an idea of a talk batting around in my head for a while about Linux security, or endpoint security. I don't think it's focused on enough, coming from a Linux admin background. So I had to kind of narrow it down a little bit. So this is kind of a 30,000 foot view of IPTables and some of the kind of cool things that it can do, other than just allow and disallow ports. So hopefully I won't disappoint anybody. It shouldn't be a waste of time. I hope. So why use it? Why not? It's got a little bit of overhead on your system because the number of chains that you have in your IP table, it's got to read them all and try and match the packet as it goes through. But I mean, you can't trust your perimeter security to take care of everything. So it's great for being used for specific case instances, on your servers. What can it do for me? Well, it can do a whole lot of things. It could do network route. You could do NATing. You can do port address translations. You can do some funky stuff with IPsec and stuff like that. Also, you could use it to help prevent against specific types of attack. You can have your perimeter firewalls and your switches all configured within an inch of their life, but this is your last point of defense. If all those fail, you want something here to help you out. So hopefully I'm going to shed some light onto some of the things that you can kind of do with that, and also way downstream there's X-table add-ons, which are some cool things that you can do with IPTables, which are kind of coming down the pipe, hopefully sooner rather than later. So, as I said, you can help, facilitate complex network applications. Instead of relying on your networking team to set up all your firewall rules and all your routing tables and everything like that for you, you can kind of do it in your own little environment and make it work what's best for you. You can help control your environment. But I have a perimeter firewall. Well, what if they're inside your perimeter? This will help you mitigate those types of threats. Going on and on. You can help segregate systems from the rest of your environment, and just essentially host protection. People tend to forget about the host as a point of entry, and this helps mitigate that, amongst other things like SE Linux and stuff like that. But that's a talk for another day. Modules are your friend. Learn all of your masks and your modules. Sure, most people know, your mask for state and stuff like that, but you also have other things that can really, really, really help you. You can also use it to help dynamically drop traffic. And that is a horrific spelling mistake. My apologies. So you can use it to dynamically drop traffic because in the later versions of IPTables they do connection tracking and connection management. So I'll get into that a little bit later on in the slide deck, but it's kind of interesting. And you can help shape and manage your traffic. Again, with your NATing and everything like that, you can have one source of entry and say, if the source address is this, if source address is 1111, going to port 80, send it off to this host. That way you can have one point of entry and disseminate the traffic based on your needs from there. So, attack prevention. Here are some cool things that you can do. Attack prevention. You have, IPTables. Well, first let me break down what IPTables is. How many people here are familiar with IPTables out the gate? A handful, okay. Well, IPTables is a set of tools that is built on the NetFilter kernel piece to Linux. And People kind of conflate the two from time to time. But it's broken down into you have tables, you have your chain, which here is your input chain, and you have your set of rules. So, this first rule here, you're saying apply this to my input chain, where your protocol is TCP, and you're saying is not a SYN packet. You're saying you're masking for state equals new, so you want to drop it. So anything that is not a SYN packet and that is a new connection, you want to drop it. Because how many times are you going to get a new connection that's not a SYN? If it's not, somebody trying to attack you, or a malformed packet. You don't want to be accepting malformed packets anyway. So, and then you have, your classic Christmas tree attack. Here, again, you have your input chain, protocol, TCP. And what we're saying here is you're saying any packet that has all your TCP flags set, drop it. I mean, it's one simple rule in your IP tables. Takes almost no overhead on your box, and the overhead is CPU, not memory. Most people have plenty of CPU to go around. So, right there, you're dropping any packet that has all your TCP flags set. Why not? I mean, how many new packets are you going to get that are going to have all your TCP flags set? So again, most of this stuff is going to be blocked by your perimeter firewalls and your internal firewalls, but what if? If you have a high value target, why not? The tool's there, use it. So, and your last one right here. This is kind of interesting as well. You can block SYN floods, for DDoS attacks. So here again, your input chain protocol TCP, any SYN packet, and the mask of COM limit, that's connection limit. If you have an IP address that has more than 9 connection limits, more than 9 connections, drop anything over 9 connections. If somebody's shouldn't have more than 9 connections open to a box, why not? I mean, you wouldn't do this for every instance you got going on, but it's a good place to start. It's nice to know that you can, with the new connection management portion of IP tables, you can say, I don't want any IP address to have more than X many connections open to a box. And this can kind of get you in trouble if you have a proxy that's connecting to your box where, you could have 100 users on the other side of this proxy coming through the proxy, and only the proxy IP address is being noticed on here. But again, that's when I say use case. If it doesn't fit your needs, don't use it. But it's there, if you need it. Apologize for the density of this slide. And here's another instance of using COM limit to help prevent people abusing your HTTP server. So here again, any TCP SYN packet, where the destination port is 80, with a connection, any connections above 20 from any particular IP address, reject it. And you can also add the reject with, and you could do TCP resets. You can do host not found. There's a host of options you can use there. All of these are in the man page for IPTables. It's a great resource, very well documented in there. So going on, here you can block based on address type. Where if you don't want broadcast traffic going to your box, here's your chain. You can drop any broadcast packets. Why not? If you don't need broadcast packets to your box, why not? So, and here, I put up a quick example of how you can set up VPN tunneling as, IP, how you can use this with IPsec. But you can also use the policy and IPsec modules for IPTables to check your packets for your authentication headers and stuff like that. So if you're not getting an IPsec packet that looks the way you think it should look, drop it. Again, you're usually going to have a firewall to take care of that on the other side, but why chance it? I can't stress that enough. It's better safe than sorry, in my opinion. So here's where I'm talking about Xtable add-ons. So it's not available in Red Hat Enterprise Linux yet, but you can get it through certain repositories for Fedora. I recommend anybody here use Linux at all at home for a hobby? No? Couple people? Couple nerds in the house? Okay. But if you feel like tinkering around with it, I highly recommend looking at it because there's some cool things that you could do with it that, the community needs to push it and to get up into your enterprise level Linux distributions. Here's one in particular that I found very interesting, and this is I was reading on this not too long ago, and it's what really spurred my interest in doing a talk on IPTables in particular. And that's a tool coming down the pipe called IPSet. It's part of the Xtable add-ons, and I don't know how many people here have managed IPTable rule sets, but I've managed some pretty unruly rule sets. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of lines, where you have multiple lines doing the same thing, but for different IP address or a different port or whatever. Well, here, using IPSet, you can create a set of information. And the sets can, I picked a simple explanation because, again, this is kind of a 30,000 foot view of what's going on. But here, IPSet-n hosts IP hash. I'm telling IPSet to create a new set called hosts, and it's going to be an IP hash. It's going to be a set of IPs. And then IPSet-a add or append hosts, 10.1.1.5 and .6 and .7. And here I'm creating a new IP set. IPSet-a, called target. And that's going to consist of 10.2.2.100, 101, 102. And then I'm going to create my IP table rules to utilize that set. So here, saying IPTables -I, that's adding it to my forward chain, and my mask of set --set hosts. I'm telling it to say where the hosts is any IP address in hosts is the source, and not in target, drop. So if I have any traffic destined for those targets that's not from those hosts, drop it. You have certain instances where that's the case. If you have a complex web application set up where you have an Oracle database that's only going to talk to 5 servers, or an Oracle database instance that's only going to talk to 5 servers to serve up data to that website. Well, your IP addresses for your website. Your IP addresses for your Oracle database. There you go. And that's just one line in your IP tables to take care of all that. Whereas before you would have, 3 times 3, 9. Depending on how many ports you need to take care of. So there you go. So that's really helpful, and you can create sets with IP addresses and port numbers. You can create sets with MAC addresses. There's a host of options. Again, I just kind of went with a simpler, device there to help explain it. This one I found especially interesting, the GeoIP mask, and I don't know if you have any boxes that need to accept traffic from China, okay? Well, if you ever wanted to block all traffic from China before, you had to either fill out your IP tables with every single, subnet mask that China owns, or here, with GeoIP, it uses a Whois database of country codes and the IP addresses that belong to those country codes, where going against your input chain, telling it to use the GeoIP mask, where the source country code is CN, drop it. Easy. It references the database that it has on the box. At that point, it's I/O, not CPU. It's good to go. Yeah.
Is there a way to say something like block everything except for the United States, nice and easy? If you're, say, getting a distributed denial service attack.
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm sure, but
You could allow the US, right?
Yes, there you go. There you go. That's a good. That's a good point. You could say where source CC dot US drop accept, and then or actually yeah, you could just put a bang right there US drop. Where if it's not US, drop it. Good question. Thank you.
Good answer.
If I had swag, well, Chris answered the question. Good answer. If I had swag, I'd give it up.
Give me a beer later.
There you go. All right. I'll buy you a beer. How about that? All right. And also with XTable add-ons, you get a whole host of new targets too. And you can do black holing, you can do tar pitting, you can do some of that in IPTables as well. But this is kind of interesting, and I found this because I like to play with people sometimes. It's called chaos. And here you're creating a new table called chaos. Here you're creating a new table called chaos. And what chaos does is it tells IPTables to respond randomly to packets if it's not what you're expecting. So, because you could do some profiling based off of return codes and ICMP echo, and stuff like that. So this will, it'll accept 2, 3 TCP packets, and then it'll just decide to drop one with a host unavailable or anything like that. And that's what this one right here does. Is we're gonna say, for our new chaos chain, we're gonna say statistically. Mode randomly, we're going to randomly drop packets 1/10 of the time, or 10% of the time. Sorry, my apologies. We're going to reject them with host unreachable. Good luck figuring out why. If you're on the other end, So if you don't want to outright reject or drop traffic, this is a good place to do it. And you can change your target to. You can change your target to tar pit, where user's going to come in, and instead of being rejected outright, it's going to let the connection time out and then drop. So they're going to get really frustrated because it's going to take them forever to try and profile your box. I don't know if it's smart to piss off a hacker, but hey, us admins need to have fun too. And lastly, this is my last slide. They have a new T target as well. And this can be used to mirror traffic without modifying it to a separate host. And this uses your natting and routing function within IPTables, where we're telling it to anything destined. Again, I'm an idiot. That should be 80 instead of 90. Again, this is kind of a last-minute presentation here. We're telling any traffic coming in, we want to pre-route, and any traffic coming into port 80, pre-route, we want to copy it or mirror it out to gateway 10112, which is this guy right here. And here, we're telling him to accept any traffic from 10111 for destined to port 80 to destination 10112 on port 80. And you can use that to, if you don't want to be doing any TCP dumps on a production box in case, it might slow it down. You can copy all traffic off to another box and run your scans from there. Hopefully it's less impactful for your production boxes. But that's just some of the interesting things that, IPTables can do, and some of the interesting things that some of the new tools that are being developed coming down the pipe are going to be able to help us do as well. And again, coming from a systems admin standpoint, using tools like this is fantastic. How many SysAdmins in the room? Systems admins? No? Nobody? Ah, man alive.
How many shy system admins?
That's a good question. I think I'm one of the few gregarious sysadmins out there. But I mean, these tools are great tools to use, in your toolbox. So, but that's. I don't think I have a finishing slide. I do not have a finishing slide. So,
I got a question.
You have a question? Go ahead.
So from a wannabe sysadmin,
Yeah.
are there any good management packs on top of it so I don't have to get on the command line anymore and I can just get my nice little GUI?
Yes. You have system-config-firewall if you're using a RHEL-based system. That brings up a nice little GUI interface, and you have a bunch of checkboxes that say, well, I want to allow port 25, I want to allow, NFS, I want to allow, whatever. And you can check all those off, and it'll create the IP tables for you. And it also gives you a section to be able to, in fact, if I got time.
Ooh.
Is it limited, or like can you only do what you really want with the command line, or is it decent?
You guys see that? A little bit. All right.
Dangerous, man. Demo gods are upset. You're violating presentations, then.
The only thing you kind of want to remember when using this is it will overwrite your IPTables config with whatever you choose here. It does a pretty good job of pulling in what's in the IPTables file as is, but
What was that system config?
system-config-firewall. System-config-tab will show you all the GUI system configuration pieces that are available. And yeah, so here you have your checkboxes telling you, I want to allow IPsec, I want to allow NFSv4. Gives you a place to add other ports that you want to allow. Gives you a place to add trusted interfaces, so I only want to allow ETH0. Gives you a place to do all your masquerading, your routing and whatnot, your port forwarding, ICMP filters, and here you can add your custom rules. So
If you have a box with multiple interfaces, do you have to apply per interface rules like FTP in and out?
only if you want to specify an interface that you want to only allow. If you leave the interface option off, it will apply to all interfaces.
So traffic coming back, you don't have to specifically allow
Right,
the
right.
connection.
So
Well, if you made changes on the command line, would that be reflected here?
it should be reflected here. It should pull it in. Yeah. I make all my changes on the command line, so.
Good town, good town.
Hate on the GUI.
Any other questions? Any other questions? No? No?
Nice stuff, man.
Cool.
Okay.
Very cool.
Thank you very much for your time.